Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating dynamic that affects, well, pretty much every single one of us. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just someone who spends maybe a few too many hours scrolling online every night, yeah, this definitely affects you. We're going to be leaning into some fantastic research from our source material today, and our goal is to unpack exactly how digital platforms are secretly rewiring our learning habits. We're diving right into the incredibly complex, double-edged sword of digital education. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this with a question you've probably asked yourself at some point while just staring at your phone. If we have literally all the world's information right here in our pockets, why aren't we all geniuses, right? It sets up this fascinating central tension for our time. We have infinite access to information at our fingertips, absolutely, but does that actually translate into genuine retained knowledge? To answer that, we really need to establish the source text we're analyzing today. We are looking at some incredible insights from IGNO's research on media influence in education. And what's phenomenal about this text is how it tracks the evolution of media over time. It looks at how mass communication has grown from being just a simple tool for basic entertainment into a massive, undeniable agent of social change and education in our modern world. Section 1. The Digital Classroom Revolution. So we're witnessing a massive shift away from those traditional, chalk and talk methods of the past. Globalization and these exponential technological advancements have totally shifted us toward a dynamic digital landscape. Today, education just isn't confined to the four walls of a physical classroom anymore. Learning can happen absolutely anywhere and at any time. And this brilliantly illustrates how the revolution extends way beyond formal schooling. Just look at how media platforms have successfully educated massive populations on critical public health issues. The text highlights that authorities leverage media to transmit urgent warnings for storms or major epidemics, things like COVID-19 and AIDS. Furthermore, researchers like Obergen and colleagues noted how social media platforms were specifically utilized by India and Pakistan to really engage the population and drive their polio eradication objectives. When leveraged correctly, this technology isn't just neat, it's a literal life-saving educational tool. Section 2. Learning by accident. But, it's not always about those top-down, highly organized public health broadcasts. We have to look at how we, as everyday users, acquire knowledge online. There is a vast, vast difference between deliberate studying, where you actually sit down with a book, and the accidental, spontaneous discoveries we make simply by swiping through our social feeds. And this brings us to a really interesting formal academic concept highlighted in the research called passive learning. Defined here by Bucas in 2019, this is basically when we unintentionally acquire knowledge about news or current events just because posts are shared by our friends, or maybe pushed by a platform's algorithm. Seriously, think about your own habits for a second. How often do you learn about breaking news not by actually going to a news homepage, but just by seeing a friend's shared post pop up on your timeline? Happens all the time, right? But there is a distinct catch to this, and it's driven by what researcher Heinonen calls the pull media nature of the internet. This is essentially the inherent tendency of the web to draw users towards social relationships and personal content. Think about it. Despite having literally millions of educational sources available to us, human nature pulls us towards social connections over textbooks. Let's be totally honest with ourselves here. You are much more likely to click on a video of your friend's new puppy than a 40-page PDF on macroeconomics. It makes it highly unlikely that we're going to actively seek out informative content if we just log on wanting to see what our friends and family are up to. Section 3. The illusion of knowledge. However, we really need to make a sharp pivot here, because this constant, passive exposure to a never-ending stream of information comes with a severe psychological trap. It's called the heuristic of feeling informed. Now, what's really interesting about this concept by Muller and colleagues is that it's a false cognitive schema. It gets activated when we simply view headlines on our screens, and it creates this mistaken impression that we've actually learned something, even if we never even clicked on the article. I'm going to challenge you directly right now. Think about how many headlines you've scrolled past today where you felt like you read the news without actually reading a single paragraph. The sheer abundance of endless digital options can actually shrink our capacity for deep educational focus. To put a fine point on exactly how dangerous this can be for learning, look at this quote from the text. The feeling of already being informed may deject other sources of information that may actually provide the necessary content to update oneself. The irony here is huge, folks. The more we scroll and absorb these superficial headlines, the less we actually read. We are actively hurting our true understanding of complex topics, all because our brains are falsely telling us, hey, we already know enough. Section 4. The New Digital Divide. So let's shift our focus now from the psychological traps of digital media over to the structural ones. As the source material points out, simply having access to the internet does not automatically equal having access to knowledge. We can see this super clearly when comparing the digital divides. The first digital divide is what we usually think of, right? The physical lack of hardware, mobile phones, or just basic internet access. But today, we're facing the second digital divide. This is a lack of English language skills and deeper technological comprehension. Even if marginalized or economically disadvantaged groups manage to get online without the necessary language skills or tech fluency, they're structurally left unable to fully utilize the educational power of the web.
And let's see how this builds into a really helpful structured model called the OMA framework by Dimitrova and colleagues. They argue that knowledge acquisition online requires 3 sequential steps. Step 1, opportunities. The digital medium and information must actually be available to you. Step 2, motivation. You must have the intrinsic desire to focus on that information instead of getting distracted by cat videos. And step 3, ability. You actually need the language and technical skills to process it. If any one of these 3 steps is missing, digital learning completely fails. You might have a blazing fast internet connection and the intrinsic desire to learn, but if the world's absolute best tutorial is in a language you don't speak, well, the learning stops right there.
Section 5. Tools versus traps. So what does this all mean? Where does this leave us? Let's bring this explainer back to the immediate, everyday reality of modern students and teachers who are just trying to navigate this incredibly complex digital landscape. The text lays out the modern classroom reality as a really delicate balance. On one hand, we have phenomenal tools. We're talking the ability to manage teamwork through smart classrooms, customize personalized learning styles, and achieve true global collaboration using something as simple as a hashtag. But neutrally looking at the other side, we have very real traps. Things like severe academic distraction, unwanted exposure to vulgarity, a screen dependency that totally kills creativity, and a measurable loss of real, face-to-face communication skills. So the crucial point is this. Digital media and audiovisual aids absolutely should be active, multisensory tools used with purpose, not just passive distractions. The research actually confirms that when used correctly, these tools break the traditional one-way communication of old-school classrooms. They provide realistic, multisensory experiences that actually help learners build deep concentration and correlate complex concepts way more effectively. It's a real game changer when done right. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to take away today. Take a look at the device you are using right now and ask yourself, is your screen a window to the world or just a mirror of your distractions? The technology is here, absolutely, and the potential for education is basically limitless, but how you choose to engage with it is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and stay curious.